Act 1, Scene 3. It is a little after 6 o'clock in the evening, 2 months later. Margot is in the bedroom at the right, studying. Mr. Van Daan is lying down in the attic room above. The rest of the family is in the main room. Anne and Peter sit opposite each other at the center table where they have been doing their lessons. Mrs. Frank is on the couch. Mrs. Van Daan is seated with her fur coat on which she has been sewing in her lap. None of them are wearing their shoes. Their eyes are on Mr. Frank, waiting for him to give them the signal which will release them from their day-long quiet. Mr. Frank, his shoes in his hand, stands looking down out of the window at the back, watching to be sure that all the workmen have left the building below. After a few seconds of motionless silence, Mr. Frank turns from the window.
It's safe now. The last workman has left.
There is an immediate fear of relief.
Anne?
I'm first for the WC.
She hurries off to the bathroom. Mrs. Frank puts on her shoes and starts up to the sink to prepare supper. Anne sneaks Peter's shoes from under the table and hides them behind her back. Mr. Frank goes into Margot's room.
6 o'clock. School's over.
Margot gets up stretching. Mr. Frank sits down to put on his shoes. In the main room, Peter tries to find his.
Have you seen my shoes?
Your shoes?
You've taken them, haven't you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're going to be sorry.
Am I?
Peter goes after her. Anne, with his shoes in her hand, runs from him, dodging behind her mother.
Anne, dear.
Wait till I get you.
I'm waiting.
Peter makes a lunge for her. They both fall to the floor. Peter pins her down, wrestling with her to get the shoes.
Don't, Peter, stop it. Ouch.
Anne, Peter.
Suddenly, Peter becomes self-conscious. He grabs his shoes roughly and starts for his room.
Peter, where are you going? Come dance with me.
I tell you, I don't know how.
I'll teach you.
I'm going to give Mushi his dinner.
Can I watch?
He doesn't like people around while he eats.
Peter, please.
No.
He goes into his room. Anne slams his door after him.
Anne, dear, I think you shouldn't play like that with Peter. It's not dignified.
Who cares if it's dignified? I don't want to be dignified.
Mr. Frank and Margot come from the room on the right. Margot goes to help her mother. Mr. Frank starts for the center table to correct Margot's school papers.
You complain that I don't treat you like a grown-up, but when I do, you resent it.
I only want some fun, someone to laugh and clown with. After you've sat still all day and hardly moved, you've got to have some fun. I don't know what's the matter with that boy.
He isn't used to girls. Give him a little time.
Time? Isn't 2 months time? I could cry. Come on, Margot, dance with me. Come on, please.
I have to help with supper.
You know you're going to forget how to dance. When we get out of here, we won't remember a thing.
She starts to sing and dance by herself. Mr. Frank takes her in his arms, waltzing with her. Mrs. Van Daan comes in from the bathroom.
Next, where's Peter?
Where would he be?
He hasn't finished his lessons, has he? His father will kill him if he catches him in there with that cat and his work not done.
Mr. Frank and Anne finish their dance. They bow to each other with extravagant formality.
Anne, get him out of there, will you?
Peter!
What is it?
Your mother says to come out.
I'm giving Mushi his dinner.
You know what your father says.
She sits on the couch sewing on the lining of her fur coat.
For heaven's sake, I haven't looked at him since lunch.
I'm just telling you, that's all.
I'll feed him.
I don't want you in there.
Peter.
Then give him his dinner and come right out, you hear?
He comes back to the table. Anne shuts the door of Peter's room after her and disappears behind the curtain covering his closet.
Now, is that any way to talk to your little girlfriend?
Mother, for heaven's sake, will you please stop saying that?
Look at him blush. Look at him.
Please, I'm not. Anyway, let me alone, will you?
He acts like it was something to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be ashamed of to have a little girlfriend.
You're crazy. She's only 13.
So what? And you're 16. Just perfect. Your father's 10 years older than I am. I warn you, Mr. Franck, if the war lasts much longer, we're going to be related, and then...
Mazel tov.
I wonder where Meep is. She's usually so prompt.
Suddenly, everything else is forgotten as they hear the sound of an automobile coming to a screeching stop in the street below. They are tense, motionless in their terror. The car starts away. A wave of relief sweeps over them. They pick up their occupations again. Anne flings open the door of Peter's room, making a dramatic entrance. She is dressed in Peter's clothes. Peter looks at her in fury. The others are amused.
Good evening, everyone. Forgive me if I don't stay. I have a friend waiting for me in there, my friend Tom Cat. Some people say that we look alike, but Tom has the most beautiful whiskers and I only a little fuzz. I am hoping, in time...
All right, Mrs. Quack Quack.
Peter!
I heard about you. How you talked so much in class they called you Mrs. Quack Quack. How Mr. Smitter made you write a composition. Quack Quack, said Mrs. Quack Quack.
Well, go on, tell them the rest. How it was so good he read it all out to the class and then read it to all his other classes.
Quack Quack, Quack Quack.
You are the most intolerable, insufferable boy I've ever met.
She throws the clothes down the stairwell. Peter goes down after them.
Quack Quack Quack.
That's right, Annika. Give it to him.
With all the boys in the world, why did I have to get locked up in here with one like you?
Quack Quack Quack. And from now on, stay out of my room.
As Peter passes her, Anne puts out her foot, tripping him. He picks himself up and goes on into his room.
Anne, dear, your hair. You're warm. Are you feeling all right?
Please, Mother.
You haven't a fever, have you?
No.
You know we can't call a doctor here ever. That's the only one thing to do. Watch carefully. Prevent an illness before it comes. Let me see your tongue.
Mother, this is perfectly absurd.
Anne, dear, don't be such a baby. Let me see your tongue. Otto.
You hear your mother, Anne.
Anne flicks out her tongue for a second, then turns away.
Come on, open up. You seem all right, but perhaps an aspirin.
For heaven's sake, don't give that child any pills. I waited for 15 minutes this morning for her to come out of the WC.
I was washing my hair.
I think there's nothing the matter with our Anne that a ride on her bike or a visit with her friend Yopi Dewal wouldn't cure. Isn't that so, Anne?
Mr. Von Don comes down into the room. From outside, we hear faint sounds of bombers going over and bursts of ack.
Me up, not come yet?
The workman just left a little while ago.
What's for dinner tonight?
Beans.
Not again.
Poor Pootie, I know. But what can we do? That's all that meat brought us.
Mr. Von Don starts to pace, his hands behind his back. Anne follows behind him, imitating him.
We are now in what is known as the bean cycle. Beans boiled, beans en casserole, beans with strings, beans without strings.
Peter has come out of his room. He slides into his place at the table, becoming immediately absorbed in his studies.
I saw you in there playing with your cat.
He just went in for a second, putting his coat away. He's been out here all the time doing his lessons.
Anne, you got an excellent in your history paper today, and very good in Latin.
How about algebra?
I'll have to make a confession. Up until now, I've managed to stay ahead of you in algebra. Today, you caught up with me. We'll leave it to Margot to correct.
Isn't algebra vile, Pim?
Vile.
How did I do?
Excellent, 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 excellent.
You should have used the subjunctive here.
But I thought, look here, I didn't use it here.
The two become absorbed in the papers.
Mrs. Von Don, may I try on your coat?
No, Anne.
It's all right. Be careful with it. My father gave it to me the year before he died. He always bought the best that money could buy.
Mrs. Von Don, did you have a lot of boyfriends before you were married?
That's a personal question. It's not courteous to ask personal questions.
Oh, I don't mind. Our house was always swarming with boys. When I was a girl, we had.
Oh God, not again.
Shut up. One summer, we had a big house in Hilversum. The boys came buzzing round like bees around a jam pot. And when I was 16, we were wearing our skirts very short those days, and I had good-looking legs. I still have them. I may not be as pretty as I used to be, but I still have my legs. How about it, Mr. Franck?
All right, we see them.
I'm not asking you. I'm asking Mr. Franck.
Mother, for heaven's sake.
Oh, I embarrass you, do I? Well, I just hope the girl you marry has as good. My father used to worry about me with so many boys hanging around. He told me if any of them gets fresh, you say to him, remember, Mr. So-and-so, remember, I'm a lady.
Remember, Mr. So-and-so, remember, I'm a lady.
Look at you talking that way in front of her. Don't you know she puts it all in her diary?
So if she does, I'm only telling the truth.
Anne stretches out, putting her ear to the floor, listening to what is going on below. The sound of the bombers fades away.
Would you mind, Peter, if I moved you over to the couch?